one thing that I learned from traveling alone and traveling in general is that the world is not that scary. I think coming from America, and Americans in general have this idea that the world is out to get them. I mean, yes, the world is crazy right now, there's a lot of stuff going on, and there's certain parts of the world that you probably don't want to go to right now. But just because you're American doesn't mean that everybody wants to kill you or come after you or kidnap you. So my mentality traveling and traveling alone is, in my own country, I'm not gonna walk down a dark alley that makes me feel uncomfortable, so I'm not gonna do it in a foreign country. Be informed, be smart, keep an open mind, and don't do things that you wouldn't do in your own country in foreign countries if they make you feel uncomfortable. So the second thing I learned from traveling and traveling alone is that there is no right way to travel. And what I mean by this is that you don't have to be a backpacker to travel Southeast Asia for 6 months. And you don't have to be super rich and going to the most fancy resorts traveling Southeast Asia. And I came across a lot of traditional backpackers with the big backpack on their back. Okay, for me, the big backpack just doesn't work for me. And I know that the backpack can be really efficient and you can cram a lot in there and it's really easy to carry. I brought my roller suitcase and I brought my little backpack. They worked just fine. There were a few times I'd have to pick up my bag if I'm going into a guest house or a hostel or onto a train, but it wasn't any big deal and I chose to do it. So that was my choice. Before you dive into or pursue a vacation or a long trip, don't get caught up on specific ways to do it. There's no right way to do it. You do it the way that you feel the most comfortable. As you go, you'll find things that work better and maybe things that don't work as well. As you identify things that do work for you and that don't work for you, you can incorporate those into your travels as you go. I did a mixture of things. I stayed at hostels, I stayed at guest houses, and I also stayed at some hotels throughout my journey. So there's no real right way to travel. The third thing I learned from traveling and traveling alone is that material things don't matter. And I know that this sounds really cliche, but I really mean it. When you're in the middle of Laos and you don't have any internet service, your phone doesn't even work, and you're there for a night or two, you are left to your own devices, your own self, to pass the time and have a good time. So just a simple card game with the locals was so much fun. Another thing, in Thailand, I was there during Songkran, which was an amazing festival. So if you're in Thailand during April, oh my gosh, I highly suggest that you go and participate in Songkran. It is such a fun festival. And doing this festival, it's a big water fight. So it's a big water fight for 3 days throughout the country. Everyone has a water gun and everyone just sprays each other with water and throwing water balloons. And it doesn't even matter who you are, where you're from, what you look like, what your religion is, what the color of your skin is, how big you are, how small you are. The only thing that mattered was having fun, and just connecting with people through water and playing with water was really a cool feeling. So again, yes, we all want to have the best computer or the nicest camera or have the latest trends, but when it comes down to it, all of these things that we have really don't matter. What matters is who we are and how we connect with other people. The fourth thing I learned from traveling and traveling alone is to keep an open mind. And you always hear keeping an open mind, being open to new experiences and things such as that. Well, when you're traveling, you definitely want to keep an open mind, because if you don't, your experience to wherever you're traveling to is not going to be the best one it could be. So for an example, throughout all of Southeast Asia, starting in Malaysia, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, there are guys on little scooters. So you jump on the back of the scooter and they'll drive you to wherever you want to go, and they usually have an extra helmet for your safety. So keeping an open mind, when I was in Krabi, Thailand, and I really wanted to go on this specific tour and just kind of take a day tour through part of Krabi, there are many guys offering to give me a ride. So I ended up choosing one, and he took me for the day, and he took me to all these different areas that were off the beaten trail, off all the tourist destinations. But in order to do it, I had to keep an open mind. I didn't know the guy. I also was getting to know that culture and knew that the odds of something happening were not very high. It ended up being a fantastic experience. He took me to places a lot of people didn't get to go to on their tours, and we got to know each other and just had an overall good time. You're not always going to be traveling with the most comfort. Keeping an open mind that, yeah, you're probably gonna be super sweaty for 6 hours on a bus ride from Siem Reap to Phnom Penh. Or, yeah, you're gonna be a little hungry for an hour or two during your transfer on the train. But this is part of traveling, and even though in the moment it will kind of suck, once you get to your next destination, you can totally fix that problem and you will be kind of grateful that you did it because it was an experience. The fifth thing that I learned from traveling alone and traveling is that traveling alone is the best thing that you can do for yourself. I have so many friends back home, and I know so many people are so afraid of traveling and traveling alone that they'll never in their life do it. And I have to admit, when I first did it, I was so scared and so nervous, and I was like, oh my god, how am I gonna do this? But what you gotta do, just like anything in life, you just gotta do it. Just dive right in. And you will learn so much about yourself, about life, about people around you. Because when you are traveling alone, you don't have anyone else to rely on but yourself. Yes, you want to keep in mind things to do for emergencies and do a little research before you leave, but you're not going to have anyone there to say, oh, how do I get to this spot? Oh, how do I get to that spot? And you're in a town and no one speaks English and everything is in Chinese. You got to figure out how you're going to get from point A to point B. At first, it's a little scary, but once you accomplish that goal, it is such a rewarding feeling that you have accomplished this simple task, or perhaps it's not a simple task, and that gives you confidence and just opens your mind. Another great thing with traveling alone is that you get to create your own schedule. So maybe you go to a certain area or a certain town and you originally planned to stay there for 3 days, but you weren't really feeling it, so you decided to leave a day early. Or perhaps you really liked it, so you decided to stay for a week. When you're traveling alone, you don't have anyone else with you, so you can make up your whole schedule. You don't have to worry about someone else that may not agree with you. So traveling alone, you also get this real sense of freedom, and freedom to do what you want, freedom of decisions. You will meet so many people if you keep an open mind and you go out there and you talk to people and you make that effort. I went on a tour in Krabi to the Phi Phi Islands, and I was by myself. There were couples in the tour, there were boyfriends and girlfriends, brothers and sisters, families, and I was the only one by myself. I ended up making friends with a lot of people on that tour, and I had an amazing time. When you stay at hostels, in guest houses, you will meet other travelers there you can do things with. So maybe they're planning to go to the same temple that you are tomorrow, so you go together. So traveling alone, you're not always alone. If you make the effort and you keep an open mind, you will meet some incredible people and make lifelong friends. The sixth thing I learned from traveling and traveling alone is that we are all equal. I don't care what you look like, what your ethnicity is, what your religion, how tall you are, how fat you are, whatever. As long as you bleed the same color blood as me, you are my brother and sister, period. I think that society gets so caught up and, you know, the gays and the straights and the Hispanics and the whites and the blacks and the Asians or whatever. But when it comes down to it, we are humanity. We are one race. We are the human race. We are all one. And I don't care if you have less money than me, more money than me, a better job than me, a worse job than me. You are not better than me, and I am not better than you. I think that what a lot of people lose in life is this idea that you are superior, that you are better than someone because of nationality or skin color or religion or occupation, when we're all the same. The seventh thing I learned from traveling alone and traveling Southeast Asia is I learned to think on my feet. Okay, when you're traveling and you're traveling alone, you don't usually have anyone else to rely on but yourself. So as you go, you gotta learn how to think quick and quick on your feet. So example, I was in Chiang Mai for the second time during my 6-month journey in Southeast Asia. I had booked a train ticket back to Bangkok at 7 p.m. or so I thought. So I arrived at the train station and nobody was there. It was empty. I go to the counter and I'm like, okay, where's the train? And they said that it was booked incorrectly, that they had booked it from Bangkok to Chiang Mai and that there were no trains going at 7 p.m. that night. And I'm like, oh my god, I need to get to Bangkok and go to Cambodia because my visa was gonna be up in 24 hours. And if it's up, it's not the end of the world, but I would have to pay a good chunk of money and I don't want to spend that money because I'm doing this long journey. So I'm like, oh my god, how am I gonna get to Bangkok? So then I realized I could take the bus. So I ran back out to the tuk-tuk guy, jumped in the tuk-tuk, and asked him to take me to the bus terminal. We got to the bus terminal and I took the last bus that night to Bangkok. It was a bit uncomfortable and it was an overnight bus, but I got there, and I got there in time for my bus to go to Cambodia the next day. That way of thinking becomes part of the way that you think in general. The 8th thing I learned from traveling and traveling alone is trust your gut. So when you're traveling and you're traveling alone especially, trust your gut instinct. If something doesn't completely make sense and you feel it in your gut that something just doesn't feel right, or that person just doesn't feel right, or that situation doesn't feel right, don't do it. This goes in general, not just for traveling, but in everyday life. So don't ignore your gut, whether you're traveling or you're at home or wherever you are, because a lot of times your gut is telling you the truth. So when something doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. The last thing I learned from traveling alone and traveling in general is to believe in yourself and to believe in others. And to believe in others, what I mean is that if you're in the middle of nowhere and nobody speaks English and there are no English signs, not to let it get to your head that, oh my god, I'm screwed, how am I gonna get out of this, no one's gonna help me. And to get that mentality out that no one's gonna help me. Just because they don't speak the same language as you doesn't mean that they're not gonna wanna help you. And to keep in mind that in the world there are a lot more good people than there are bad people. And to believe in yourself. To believe that you can do it. Yes, it's a difficult situation. Yes, you're hot and sweaty and you're in the middle of nowhere and nobody speaks English and you're not quite sure where you are. But to believe that, okay, you know what? This is okay. I'm gonna figure it out and there will be someone in this town that will help me. Pushing through that barrier of fear or uncertainty and just doing it and having that confidence and believing in yourself. Even if you don't believe in yourself at that moment, pretend and it will happen. So those are the 9 things I learned from traveling and traveling alone. I hope that some of them helped you, and if you've been wanting to travel and just been kind of stuck or not been able to get over that hump, I hope that some of these helped you. Thanks again for watching, guys, and if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe down below and give this video a like if you like it. I'll be uploading new videos every Monday. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.